We believe that the AI Act is leading to a renewed appetite of clients for a new generation of data protection legislation.
Today, I have the pleasure to welcome in the studio Alain Herrmann, which is Commissioner at the National Commission for Data Protection in Luxembourg, the CNPD, and Claudio Miele, who is Privacy Leader within the Cybersecurity and Data Protection Department of Mazars Financial Advisory Services. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Our pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So today's discussion is absolutely fascinating. We will talk about artificial intelligence and data protection with particular regard to the insurance industry. So let's jump right into it. To give some context, GDPR will celebrate its 6th anniversary on May the 25th. And my question is to you, Claudio, is Mazars witnessing new data protection trends in the market?
2023, Jerome, was a record year for GDPR enforcement, with aggregated fines of approximately 2.3 billion euro at European level, compared to less than 1 billion recorded in 2022. And the main topics under the scope of the authority have been the lack of transparency and accountability, but also the non-compliance with data minimization and purpose limitation principle, last but not least, inadequate privacy by design, technical and security measures. Among the others, all those sanctions have in common the misuse of personal data, or even worse, the lack of control over the personal data entrusted to data controllers. And in this context, we believe at Mazars that digital transformation is increasing such data protection challenges, because now entities have a new capacity to process large amounts of personal data by automated means, potentially losing control over the intended purpose of the processing, but also the effectiveness of the related technical and security measures. And speaking about the insurance sector, it is fair to say that the use of the so-called generative artificial intelligence represent the 2024 emerging trend. Generative AI by means of machine learning techniques, but also the use of the so-called big data, allows companies to develop unprecedented predictive and profiling strategies. And it is well known that the ability to analyze customer behaviors has been historically a competitive advantage for insurance companies. Jerome, is maybe worth mentioning that recent research forecast and predict that AI generative market will grow up to $1.3 trillion over the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's indeed a massive topic right now across all industries, but also, as you said, in the insurance segment. So Alain, a question for you. In the context of the digital transformation and the use of generative AI solutions, what are the main GDPR challenges according to the CNPD?
Well, Jerome, first of all, I would like to remind that GDPR principles and rights of the individuals are still applicable when using AI. Entities need to identify data protection risks in the context of the use of AI. For example, AI requires data maximizations, while GDPR requires data minimizations. One of the main risks of AI is the so-called black box. In other words, you not know how the data is processed by the system, while GDPR requires transparency. Specifically, GDPR Article 22 about automated decisions applies, whereas a human being has to be able to explain an automated decision. This is even relevant in the insurance industry when you perform profiling and predictive activities by means of AI. You also have to take care of secondary use of data. You are required to identify a legal basis to perform it. You still need to be able to handle subject rights. More generally, there are more risks to generate inequalities, injustice, and bias, mainly for minorities.
Yeah, we talked about it just before the interview. Might be surprising, but you're touching about the fact that AI works with data input. And as we discussed today, some studies show that minorities normally have a smaller data footprint, which is sometimes interpreted by machines as a lack of relevance. So really incredible complications here through machine usage. So next question to you, Claudio. Is Mazars Luxembourg witnessing such GDPR challenges while assisting its clients, and especially those in the insurance sector?
We cannot agree more with what was just mentioned by Alain. Maybe in addition to this, it is worth noticing a renewed consideration for the data protection officer role. Many players in the market have indeed decided to appoint a DPO even when it is not strictly mandatory under the GDPR, or because they assessed a potential conflict of interest. And in Luxembourg, for example, many actors allocated over the last years the DPO role to employees having already a management position within their entities, such as AML or a risk officer, for example, potentially leading to conflict of interest. So we believe that appointing a DPO is definitely a bold move. First of all, to enhance the monitoring activities, but also to provide renewed input to the first line of defense when it comes to implementation activities, especially in the context of new technological developments like generative AI.
Thank you, Claudio. So maybe let's talk now about the AI Act, which was voted on May the 21st and entered into force in June. So a question for you, Alain. What is the aim of the Artificial Intelligence Act?
Well, the AI Act is aimed to enable the development of solutions using AI technology while respecting fundamental rights. It supports innovation and adopts a risk-based approach. It's also established the creation of tools such as the regulatory sandboxes, conformity assessments like the CE marking, and it facilitates the setup of technical labs. It's the first time that a regulation is adopted before mass deployment of technology. We all need to capture this opportunity, regulated entities, as well in the private sector and the public sector, service providers, tech companies, and so on.
And Claudio, how are market players reacting to this AI Act?
Our perception at Mazars is that the market learned lessons from the GDPR compliance process, meaning that clients understood that anticipating compliance effort may represent a competitive advantage. And in this context, we are already receiving some AI-related requests from clients, especially those engaged in credit scoring or life insurance processing by means of artificial intelligence tool, because they are now required to perform the fundamental right impact assessment under the AI Act. And such assessment goes beyond the privacy and security consideration addressed by the data protection impact assessment that we all know under the GDPR. Indeed, the fundamental right impact assessment has a wider scope. It also addresses non-personal data. It includes aspects such as ethical use, non-discrimination, freedom of expression, but also human oversight measures. And ultimately, it aims at analyzing the AI system design, development, deployment, and use. What is the overall goal is to, on one side, detect potential issues, on the other side, develop mitigating strategies. We believe that the AI Act is leading to a renewed appetite of clients for a new generation of data protection legislation, more in tune with the digital revolution landscape and related ethical challenges.
Thank you very much. And I'm very curious because, you know, GDPR was such a massive news 6 years ago. We haven't really heard massive changes over the past 6 years. So Alain, what lies ahead? Do you think there's going to be some GDPR 2.0?
I don't think there's going to be a GDPR 2.0. GDPR is technology neutral. The European Digital Legislative Package, which includes the AI Act, Data Governance Act, Data Act, Digital Service Act, Digital Market Act, DORA, and so on, is complementary with all existing texts, including the GDPR.
Maybe, Claudio, a last question for you. If you could offer only one suggestion for regulated entities, what would it be?
We will probably recommend clients to develop an effective accountability culture to foster transparency, to foster responsibility when it comes to the ability to demonstrate GDPR compliance, for example, as well as to develop a proper data management across the organization. Indeed, in the current dynamic digital environment, accountability shall not be considered as a mere legal requirement, but rather a strategic imperative. Because by actively adhering to this principle, entities can establish trust-based relationship with their customer, they reduce the risk associated with non-compliance, and ultimately position themselves as a data protection leaders, truly establishing the ground for a sustainable growth in a world which is more and more data-centric.
Thank you. And Alain, I'll leave you the last word.
Well, my main recommendation would be to implement strong operational data governance. If an entity does not master the operational management of its data, in addition to having difficulty obtaining value from the use of its data, it will be unable to comply with this legislative package, which can translate into loss of competitiveness and recurrent legal risks.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.